Premier claims defense spending will reach 3.32% of GDP in 2026.
Premier Zhu Rongtai says the government will be looking to spend 3.32% of GDP on defense next year. The proposed amount, which reaches 949.5 billion NT, factors in expenditures for veteran affairs and the Coast Guard. The Premier says the new calculation method for the defense budget followed NATO standards, and he says it demonstrates the government's determination and capability to safeguard national sovereignty and security. The budget still requires legislative approval and represents an increase of 176.8 billion NT, or a year-on-year rise of 22.9%. Without factoring in veteran and Coast Guard expenses, the proposed budget for the Ministry of National Defense alone will increase by 93.8 billion NT, a 20.1% rise compared with 2025. Presidential Lai Ching-te in February said his administration would aim to ensure the defense budget exceeds 3% of GDP. Lai's comment came as U.S. President Donald Trump was making repeated calls for Taiwan to increase military spending. The last time defense spending exceeded 3% of GDP was in 2009 during the presidency of Ma Ying-jeou. Under the DPP administrations of Tsai Ing-wen and Lai Ching-te, defense spending has hovered between 2 and 2.5% over the past 9 years. Cabinet approves special budget for typhoon and heavy rain aid.
Cabinet approves special budget for typhoon and heavy rain aid.
Meanwhile, the Cabinet has approved a special budget of up to 60 billion Newton to support regions hit hard by Typhoon Danis and torrential rain in July. Special budget bill still requires legislative approval and follows an aid package passed by the legislature last week. While the aid package authorized the relief plan, a separate budget bill is required to release the funds. Under the proposed special budget, the government can use up to 60 billion NT to fund recovery efforts in affected areas. The proposed funding will be used to repair and rebuild infrastructure, electricity systems, telecommunications and cable TV networks, cultural heritage sites, and other public facilities. The proposed funding also includes support for private sector recovery and households that suffered financial losses through subsidies, compensation, and other relief measures. If passed by lawmakers, the special budget package will remain in effect until December 31st, with certain infrastructure projects allowed to continue until the end of 2027. Moda fines Meta NT $2.5 million over delayed fake ads removal.
Moda fines Meta NT $2.5 million over delayed fake ads removal.
The Ministry of Digital Affairs has fined Meta Platforms 2.5 million Taipei after it failed to remove false advertising on Facebook within 24 hours of being notified by Taipei city government. That failure is a violation of the Fraud Crime Hazard Prevention Act. The Digital Ministry says the fine was based on 2 cases submitted by the Taipei city government on June 18th and on July 14th. The city government notified the company of just over 1,700 infractions relating to Facebook between the 2 dates. Of the infractions, 77 were for Meta's failure to remove false ads from Facebook within 24 hours. And while Meta had complied with the order from Taipei city government and removed 95% of the reported ads in a timely manner, but 5% failed to meet the 24-hour deadline. 26-month sentence given to former Air Force major who spied for China upheld.
26-month sentence given to former Air Force major who spied for China upheld.
The Supreme Court has upheld a 26-month prison term for a former Air Force major convicted of spying for China, while remanding another 10-month sentence to a lower court for a retrial. Former Air Force Major Shi Chun-cheng was convicted of 2 counts of violating the National Security Act by the High Court's Taichung Branch Court in March. He was given 2 sentences of 26 and 10 months for his offenses, and the court ruled that he was to serve 30 months in prison. Both Shi and prosecutors appealed the ruling. Prosecutors say Shi was recruited by Chinese intelligence officers to operate an espionage ring in Taiwan, to gather military secrets, and persuaded a then Air Force Air Intercept Controller to leak classified files in exchange for money. Shid delivered classified files to his contacts in China between 2021 and 2024. The files reportedly included information concerning the Air Force's applications of air-launched Hongfeng-3 anti-ship missiles and deployments in response to Chinese military incursions into Taiwan's air defense identification zones. Taiwan and U.S. sign MOU on combating cross-border drug trafficking.
Taiwan and U.S. sign MOU on combating cross-border drug trafficking.
Taiwan and the United States have signed a memorandum of understanding to jointly combat transnational drug trafficking. The American Institute in Taiwan said the agreement would enhance intelligence sharing between the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration and the Taiwan High Prosecutor's Office. After it was signed, the MOU was presented during the 4th Annual Cross-Border Drug Enforcement Cooperation Forum held at the DEA headquarters in Virginia. DEA Asia Pacific Division Special Agent in charge John Scott referred to the meeting as the result of the shared commitment of Taiwan and the United States to combat the scourge of drug trafficking. NHI to cover costly gene therapy for rare disease.
NHI to cover costly gene therapy for rare disease.
The National Health Insurance Administration says gene therapy for a rare genetic disorder will be covered under the National Health Insurance Program. Coverage for the treatment costs more than 100 million NTD and is expected to begin as early as November. Research shows that AADC deficiency afflicts about 1 out of every 30,000 newborns here in Taiwan. Official data shows 72 patients in Taiwan were diagnosed with the disease as of July 31, 2025. with 27 having died before June 30th. Children with AADC deficiency typically begin showing symptoms between the ages of 1 and 2. If they are untreated, they don't survive past the age of 5. Health authorities say the treatment is administered as a one-time injection. The National Health Insurance Administration says the therapy will be the most expensive drug covered by the program to date, and it will negotiate prices with pharmaceutical companies and pay in installments. NPM to show meat-shaped stone in first exhibition in Yilan.
NPM to show meat-shaped stone in first exhibition in Yilan.
And the National Palace Museum has announced that its iconic meat-shaped stone and 14 other artifacts will be going on display in Yilan for the first time. The artifacts will be part of a special exhibition co-organized with the Lanyang Museum in December. National Palace Museum Director Xiao Zonghuang and Acting Yilan County Magistrate Lin Maoxing signed an agreement in Taipei on the two museums cooperating on the special exhibition. Along with its famed meat-shaped stone, the National Palace Museum also picked a jade duck piece dating back to the Song and Yuan dynasties, a porcelain chicken cup in Duce painted enamels from the Ming dynasty, and a revolving vase with swimming fish in cobalt blue glaze from the Qing dynasty, to be shown in the exhibition. Drone attacks UN convoy in Sudan.
Drone attacks UN convoy in Sudan.
The United Nations says a drone attack on a UN convoy set fire to all 16 trucks, carrying desperately needed food to Sudan's famine-hit North Darfur region, and destroyed all the vehicles. UN Associate Spokesperson Daniela Gross said that all drivers and personnel traveling with the World Food Program convoy are safe. Gross said it was not yet clear who was responsibility for Wednesday's attack, the second in the past 3 months, to prevent a UN convoy from delivering to North Darfur. Sudan plunged into conflict in April 2023, when violence sparked by long-simmering tensions between its military and paramilitary leaders erupted in the capital, Khartoum, and spread to other regions, including Western Darfur. Tax relief plan to ease burden on families from next year.
Taiwan to waive security checks for transit passengers from Canada.
The Civil Aviation Administration says transit passengers from Toronto and Vancouver airports will soon be exempt from security screening at Taoyuan International Airport. The new policy will take effect on September 1st. It will exempt not only the transit travelers but also their carry-on luggage from security checks. The Civil Aviation Administration says the move will help to speed up the process of making connecting flights. According to the administration, some 220,000 passengers, or 6% of transit passengers at Taoyuan International Airport in 2024, were from Canada. AP EU Russia-Ukraine War 15th LD right-through.
APU Russia-Ukraine War, 15th lead right through.
Russia has launched a rare drone and missile attack on western Ukraine, hitting an American-owned electronics plant among other targets. It has injected further uncertainty into the U.S.-led efforts to end the three-year-old war. The aerial assault on a part of Ukraine that has largely not experienced such focused attacks was one of Russia's biggest this year and came while Moscow objects to key aspects of proposals that could end the fighting. European countries are considering military deployments to deter future Russian aggression, but the Kremlin opposes NATO involvement. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned the latest attack and urged stronger international pressure on Moscow, including tougher sanctions. Iran has held its first military exercise since its 12-day war with Israel.
Iran has held its first military exercise since its 12-day war with Israel.
Iran has held its first military exercise since its 12-day war with Israel. State television reported that Navy vessels would fire missiles at sea targets in the Gulf of Oman and the Indian Ocean on Thursday. The exercise, called Sustainable Power 1404, aims to project strength after Israel destroyed air defense systems and bombed nuclear facilities. Iran's Navy, with around 18,000 personnel, avoided major attacks during the war. Meanwhile, Iran has suspended cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency. France, Germany, and the UK have warned of reimposing UN sanctions if no resolution is reached by August 31st. Analysts warn that renewed UN sanctions could further weaken the country's ailing economy. Premier claims defense spending will reach 3.32% of GDP in 2026.
Moev, destroyed solar panels should be cleared up by September.
The Ministry of Environment says the solar panels destroyed by Typhoon Danas should be cleaned up by the end of September. As the typhoon made landfall in Chiayi on July 6th, an estimated 135,000 solar panels, weighing a total of 2,800 tons in southern Taiwan, were destroyed, with many pieces scattered around. The MOENV said today that some 74% of those panels have been cleared away or are waiting to be recycled. The comments come after news reports indicating that some operators of solar power were found to have crushed on the spot the damaged solar panels and floats to save cost, causing concerns about environmental pollution. The ministry stressed that it's added new rules to the Renewable Energy Development Act and classified solar panels as waste that must be recycled. The rules stipulate that current operators must pay a recycling and disposal fee of $1,000 per kilowatt for solar panels. The ministry said Yuanyu Solar Energy Company has already been fined 9 million NT for delaying the handling of 35,000 panels. JL. TRC adds trips for Teachers' Day.
TRC adds trips for Teachers' Day.
The Taiwan Railways Corporation is adding trips for the upcoming Teachers' Day long weekend. The railway company announced the schedule changes today in anticipation of an increase in passenger numbers, with tickets available starting August 27th. The TRC says the extra trains will run on all lines from September 26th to 30th, and the corporation says it will also temporarily sell family car tickets as general seating over that period of time. Meanwhile, real name tickets for Eastern lines will be available for purchase from August 28th for residents of Hualien and Taitung counties or their spouses and immediate family members. NS. Netanyahu to give final approval for takeover of Gaza City.
Netanyahu to give final approval for takeover of Gaza City.
Now turning to international news now. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he will give final approval for the takeover of Gaza City, while also restarting negotiations with Hamas. The operation in Gaza City could start within days after Netanyahu grants final approval at a meeting with senior security officials. Hamas said earlier this week that it had agreed to a ceasefire proposal from Arab mediators. If that's accepted by Israel, it could delay the offensive. But the Israeli military has already begun warning health officials and international organizations to evacuate parts of the Strip. Israeli strikes, meanwhile, killed at least 36 Palestinians yesterday across Gaza, according to local hospitals. A renewed offensive could bring even more casualties and displacement to the territory, where the Israeli military has already killed tens of thousands and where experts warn of imminent famine. Japan struggles to match matcha boom.
Japan struggles to match matcha boom.
And everyone loves a matcha latte, but the growing popularity of matcha is creating challenges for growers struggling to meet demand. The Japanese Agricultural Ministry has been working to boost tea growth in recent years, offering help for farmers with new machines, special soil, financial aid, and counseling to try to coax farmers into switching from matcha to regular green tea, called sencha. The growth and processing of matcha and sencha are distinct, so farmers are hesitant to make the switch for fear of the matcha bubble bursting. Japan's tea exports have more than doubled over the last decade, and much of that growth is of matcha. Other countries also are producing matcha, so Japan is racing to establish its branding as the origin of the tea. Taiwan to waive security checks for transit passengers from Canada.
CEC on rules about Saturday's referendum and recall vote.
Central Election Commission is reminding voters of the rules for tomorrow's referendum and recall in New Taipei, Taichung, Hsinchu County, and Nantou. A CEC says campaigning for the referendum on whether to extend the life of the No. 3 nuclear power plant can go on through Saturday, but that's not the case for the recalls against 7 KMT lawmakers. All public activities supporting or opposing the recall are not allowed tomorrow. Voters are banned from displaying their ballots after marking them, and violators can be fined up to 200,000 NT or face a maximum jail term of 2 years. At the polling stations where both the referendum and the recall votes are held, voters will first receive the recall ballot, then the referendum ballot, mark both, and place them into their respective boxes. The counting will proceed with the recall ballots first, followed by the referendum ballots. The CEC says there are 750,000 first-time voters for the referendum. That's some 3.7% of 20 million eligible voters. JL. And Taipei adding fan jackets to labor subsidies.
And Taipei adding fan jackets to labor subsidies.
New Taipei is now offering subsidies to businesses who purchase fan vests to help employees working outdoors stay cool. The city's Department of Labor says the outerwear, which comes with built-in fans, is now included in an existing program to improve workplace safety. Businesses with 50 employees or fewer can apply for city funding to cover half of the purchase cost or more, up to $30,000 NT. Officials say with rising summer temperatures, the city is encouraging employers to provide cooling gear to workers to reduce the risk of heat-related illnesses. NS. Mock reminder to use culture points.
MOC reminder to use culture points.
The Ministry of Culture is reminding young people to use its summer bonus offers for its Cultural Points program before the holidays end. The program offers students points to spend on books, performances, and cultural experiences, with an additional summer deal offering bonus points for watching a domestically produced movie or visiting the museum. The ministry says the seasonal deal applies until September 15th. Government data shows that more than 1.5 million youths have claimed cultural points so far this year, amounting to about 74% of those eligible. NS. Taiwan shares.
17 dead in Colombia following separate attacks.
Now turning to international news. 17 are dead in Colombia following a car bomb and an attack on a police helicopter. President Gustavo Petro attributed the attacks to dissidents of the defunct Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia. Among the 17 killed are 12 police officers who were killed in the attack on the helicopter when it was transporting personnel. Local authorities say that a vehicle loaded with explosives detonated near a military aviation school, killing 5 there and injuring more than 30. Phil, defense ministers meeting in Manila.
Philippine defense ministers meeting in Manila.
The defense ministers of Australia and the Philippines are expected to meet in Manila to discuss their concerns over Beijing's actions in the South China Sea. Filipino forces are on alert after China deployed a larger number of Coast Guard forces closer to Manila's military ship outpost in a disputed area. Meanwhile, Australian forces are holding their largest combat exercises with the Philippine military. The Australian Defence Minister has been invited to witness a drill beach assault in the Philippines. China's military has separately confronted U.S., Australian, and Philippine ships and planes in very close calls to assert what Beijing calls its sovereignty and sovereign rights in the strategic waterway, and ... sparking fear of a larger conflict that may involve U.S. forces and their allies. ICE ramps up training with focus on Fourth Amendment.
ICE ramps up training with focus on Fourth Amendment.
In the U.S., the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency is ramping up its hiring efforts to support the president's mass deportation goals. As the agency aims to hire 10,000 new deportation officers by the end of the year. Training for new recruits include guns, driving skills, de-escalation, and immigration law, with a focus on the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution states that people have the right against unreasonable search and seizure. That's as there have been increased efforts by civil groups to educate immigrants about their rights in the event that they are targeted by ICE. Moave, destroyed solar panels should be cleared up by September.
Cabinet Secretary General will be Zhang Dunhan.
Former presidential office spokesman Zhang Dunhan will reportedly take the office of Cabinet Secretary General. Zhang will replace Gong Ming-shin, who will be appointed to another position, but remain in the cabinet. The move is considered the DPP government's first step of reshuffling the cabinet, something that the opposition Blue and the White camp have been calling for. Zhang is currently the Deputy Presidential Office Secretary General. JL. Man who spied on Falun Gong for CCP, sentence finalized.
Man who spied on Falun Gong for CCP, sentence finalized.
The Supreme Court has upheld the 1-year, 2-month prison sentence for a man who tried to spy on Falun Gong followers for China's State Security Ministry. The verdict is final after multiple appeals. According to investigations, Shui Zhenchun, a businessman that often traveled across the Taiwan Strait, met 2 Chinese state security officials responsible for intelligence work in Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Macau in 2014. They instructed him to gather information about Falun Gong practitioners going into and out of Taiwan. Shui tried to solicit the info from a Taiwanese government official who declined his request. Even so, a lower court had ruled that people entering and leaving Taiwan is classified information and should never be revealed to Chinese authorities, adding that Shui violated the National Security Act. The Supreme Court upheld this view. Taitung Balloon Fest draws over 680,000 visitors.
Taitung Balloon Fest draws over 680,000 visitors.
The 2025 Taiwan International Balloon Festival has come to a close, drawing large crowds despite unstable weather. The Taitung County government says the event, which began on July 5th and held its closing ceremony yesterday, saw over 680,000 visitors over its 45-day run. And they say that's in spite of 18 days canceled and 26 shows cut due to rough weather. Officials say this year marked the festival's 15th anniversary, partnering with Japanese cartoon character Doraemon to introduce a new balloon and themed activities. The county government says the event boosted tourism and Taitung's presence on the world stage. NS, NVIDIA CEO, the company discussing potential new computer chip designed for.
NVIDIA CEO, the company discussing potential new computer chip designed for.
China. In world news, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang says the company is discussing a potential new computer chip designed for China with the Trump administration. Huang was asked about a possible B-30A semiconductor for artificial intelligence data centers while on a visit to Taiwan. He said NVIDIA was in dialogue with the U.S. government on the potential new product, but it was too soon to know what will happen. Huang praised the Trump administration for approving sales of NVIDIA's H20 chips to China. He said he was also speaking with Beijing to reassure Chinese authorities that the chips do not pose a backdoor security risk. Unconfirmed reports have said Beijing is pushing Chinese companies to avoid using the chips. Iran tries to avoid new sanctions.
Iran tries to avoid new sanctions.
Iran's foreign minister is planning a call with French, German, and British counterparts to avoid UN sanctions over its nuclear program. The call planned for later today comes as these countries threaten to reimpose sanctions using a snapback mechanism from the 2015 nuclear deal. The snapback mechanism allowed for the swift and automatic reimposition of all pre-existing United Nations sanctions against Iran if the country was found to be in significant non-compliance with the terms of the deal. Concerns have grown since Iran cut off cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency after a conflict in June. The European deadline is August 31st. Restoring IAEA access is crucial, but Iran has complicated talks by threatening the IAEA's Director General with arrest if he comes to Iran. China's biggest solar farm.
China's biggest solar farm.
Chinese officials have showcased what they claim will be the world's largest solar farm on the Tibetan Plateau. It covers 610 square kilometers and is part of China's rapid solar expansion. A study published Thursday said China's carbon emissions fell 1% in the first half of the year, continuing a trend since March 2024. This decline suggests emissions may have peaked well ahead of the nation's goal of before 2030. However, experts say a sharper reduction is needed for China to achieve carbon neutrality by 2060. One challenge is aligning green energy distribution with industrial needs across the country. CEC on rules about Saturday's referendum and recall vote.
Former Mastodon guitarist passes away.
The former singer-guitarist for the Grammy-winning metal band Mastodon, Brent Hines, has died in a motorcycle accident in Atlanta. He was 51. Authorities say the accident happened late Wednesday night when a BMW SUV failed to yield at an intersection. Hines was unresponsive at the scene. An autopsy concluded he died of multiple blunt force injuries. Known for their heavy metal sound, Mastodon expressed their heartbreak on social media. Hines co-founded the band in 2000, and they achieved significant success with albums like Emperor of Sand. Mastodon earned 6 Grammy nominations, winning one in 2017. Hines left the band in March 2025. Lil Nas X jailed on suspicion of misdemeanor.
Lil Nas X jailed on suspicion of misdemeanor.
Police say rapper Lil Nas X has been jailed on suspicion of misdemeanor obstructing a police officer after a run-in with police in Los Angeles. Police say officers responding to reports of a naked man in the street found him walking on a busy boulevard early Thursday. They say he was arrested after charging at the officers. Suspecting a drug overdose, police took him to a hospital before booking him into jail. The 26-year-old Grammy nominee, Lil Nas X, is best known for his record-setting 2018 hit Old Town Road. He also performed and co-wrote a song for the 2022 League of Legends World Anthem. The rapper's representatives did not immediately reply to requests for comment. Florida police still investigating death of Hulk Hogan.
Florida police still investigating death of Hulk Hogan.
Police in Florida are still investigating the death last month of professional wrestling icon Hulk Hogan from what the medical examiner concluded was a heart attack. The Clearwater Police Department said in a statement that the unique nature of the case requires multiple interviews of witnesses and obtaining medical records for several providers. Hogan, whose real name was Terry Bollea, died July 24th at age 71 at a hospital after paramedics and police rushed to his beachfront home in Clearwater following a 911 call. That call and police body camera video of the scene has not yet been released as the investigation continues. Cabinet Secretary General will be Zhang Dunhan.
NVIDIA CEO Huang visits Taiwan amid chip talks and HQ plans.
NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang is in Taiwan for talks with Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, marking his third visit this year. After arriving at Taipei Songshan Airport this morning, Wang said he'll meet TSMC executives to discuss NVIDIA's latest virtual reality chips and plans for new devices, including Spectrum X phonics switches. He praised TSMC as one of the greatest companies in the history of humanity, noting the two firms are collaborating on 6 new chips, including a CPU, GPU, and NVLink chips. Huang's surprise visit also sparked speculation it was linked to NVIDIA's planned Taipei headquarters in Beito Shilin Technology Park. City officials say the trip is unrelated. NVIDIA plans to build on 2 plots owned by Shinkong Life Insurance, and under existing rules, land rights can only transfer after construction is completed and a usage permit is issued. Taipei officials say they will support the project if NVIDIA and Shinkong reach an agreement within those rules. Huang also addressed NVIDIA's potential new chip for China, known as the B30A, saying the company is in dialogue with the U.S. government about the product, but it's too soon to know what will happen. He praised the Trump administration for approving sales of NVIDIA's H2O chips to China, and said he is speaking with Beijing to reassure authorities that the chips do not pose a backdoor security risk. IG. Germany's economy shrank in Q2 by 0.3%.
Germany's economy shrank in Q2 by 0.3%.
Official data shows the German economy shrank by 0.3% in the second quarter, compared with the previous 3-month period. That was a significantly worse showing than was initially reported for Europe's biggest economy. In a preliminary report at the end of July, the Federal Statistical Office had said gross domestic product contracted by 0.1% in April-June compared with the first quarter. The office on Friday said full data showed output in manufacturing and construction was worse than expected in June. Household spending for the quarter also was revised downward. The decline followed growth of 0.3% in the first quarter. Former Mastodon guitarist passes away.
Palestinian woman's funeral held in Italy.
A funeral has been held in Italy for a 19-year-old Palestinian woman evacuated from Gaza, who died shortly after arriving in the country. Mara Abu Zuhri's coffin, draped in a Palestinian flag, was laid to rest in a town near Pisa. Hundreds attended the service, where chants of Free Palestine broke out, and local officials called Israel's war on Gaza a humanitarian catastrophe. Doctors say the woman was misdiagnosed with leukemia and instead suffered from severe malnutrition. The United Nations says Gaza's health system has collapsed after withstanding nearly 2 years of attacks, and food shortages have reached famine levels. 79 dead in Afghanistan bus crash.
79 dead in Afghanistan bus crash.
At least 79 people are dead after a bus crash in northwestern Afghanistan, including 19 children. Authorities say the bus was returning Afghanis from Iran when it collided with a truck and a motorbike in Herat province, sparking a massive fire. This comes as nearly 2 million Afghans have been forced back from Iran in recent months, with more deported from Pakistan and Turkey. Advocacy groups warn that children face particular risks in these mass returns. Save the Children called the crash a stark reminder of the dangers Afghan families face as they try to return home. Taiwan team advances to Little League Baseball International Championship game.
Li Yang rumored to take role of sports minister.
Badminton Olympic gold medalist Li Yang is rumored to become the inaugural sports minister after the ministry is established on September 9th. The executive Yuan spokesman said all changes would be announced at the appropriate time. Li won gold at last year's Paris Olympics in the men's doubles against China with his partner Wang Qilin, and also previously took gold at the Tokyo Olympics. Li is 30, so if he were appointed, he would become the youngest minister in ROC history. Cabinet to offer 120 billion NT in subsidy to labor insurance fund.
Cabinet to offer 120 billion NT in subsidy to labor insurance fund.
The cabinet has passed the 2026 central government's general budget and will again offer a subsidy of 120 billion NT to the Labor Insurance Fund. This is the 7th consecutive year that the cabinet injects money into the fund, bringing the total injection to 517 billion Nang Thai. The subsidy started off in 2020 at 20 billion Natsi and increased every year to 45 billion Natsi in 2023 and 120 billion last year. Under the special budget for strengthening the economy and social resilience post-pandemic, the government allocated an extra 10 billion NT a year to the fund over the past 3 years. According to the latest actuarial report released in January this year, the Labor Insurance Fund's hidden liabilities have reached $14 trillion NT. However, thanks to government injections of funding and the assumption of a higher investment return, the projected bankruptcy date has been pushed back by another 3 years to 2031. JL. New priority seat icon unveiled for Taiwan's public transportation.
New priority seat icon unveiled for Taiwan's public transportation.
The Ministry of Transportation and Communications has unveiled a new blue and white icon for priority seats on public transport. It depicts 5 groups: seniors, expectant mothers, the injured, caregivers holding children, and those feeling unwell. The updated signage, which replaces the older courtesy seats label, reflects new rules that broaden who can use these seats. The change follows amendments passed in July to the People with Disabilities Rights Protection Act, expanding eligibility from just the elderly, disabled, and pregnant mothers to anyone with actual needs. Officials say the sign is under a 7-day public notice period. If no objections are raised, it could start appearing across public transport as early as September. IG. Ukraine. Russia launches major aerial attack.
Ukraine. Russia launches major aerial attack.
Now turning to international news. Ukrainian officials say Russia launched a major aerial attack on the country, firing nearly 600 drones and 40 missiles. The attack targeted western regions of Ukraine, killing at least 1 and injuring 15 others. That marks Russia's 3rd largest aerial attack this year by drone count. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has condemned the attack, urging stronger international pressure on Moscow. Meanwhile, Zelensky plans to hold talks with Russian President Putin that may involve U.S. President Trump to discuss security guarantees and peace efforts. Uganda agrees to take deported migrants from U.S.
Uganda agrees to take deported migrants from U.S.
Uganda says it has struck a deal with the U.S. to accept deported migrants, but only under strict conditions. Officials in Kampala said the deportees must not have criminal records and cannot be unaccompanied minors. Uganda also indicated it would prefer that those arriving are of African nationalities. U.S. government documents reportedly show that the Trump administration reached agreements with both Uganda and Honduras as part of a wider crackdown on immigration. Uganda's foreign ministry said details are still being worked out, but described the deal as already concluded. Proposed defense budget increase doesn't include raise for military personnel.
Tax relief plan to ease burden on families from next year.
Premier Cho Jung-tai says some households will no longer have to pay income tax starting in 2026. Under the government's new tax relief plan, young renters earning under 626,000 NT a year, families of 4 with incomes below 1.64 million, and 3-generation households making under 2.1 million will all be exempt. The announcement came as the cabinet approved the 2026 central government budget, which now heads to the Legislative Yuan for review. Cho says the policy aims to ease burdens and boost disposable income by raising basic living expenses, deductions, and childcare and rental allowances. Li Yang rumored to take role of sports minister,